Today we're going to be looking at something called midpoint of a line segment. So what I've drawn here is a line segment. So I just drew a random line AB. I just want you to think about it. If I said find the midpoint,
in the middle.
Midpoint, what do you think that is asking? Name, you're finding the point in the middle. So in between, the middle of A and B. How would you find a middle point? Let's say this was a number line, and let's say we started at 0 and I ended at 10. How would you find halfway between 0 and 10? Right, so you would add 0 plus 10 equals 10, and then we would divide it by 2. Anytime you need to find half, you divide by 2.
So 10 divided by 2.
Okay, that's a very basic example. Okay, we're going to look at a harder example. We're going to look at a line on a graph. So the first point is at 10. So I'm starting at X, moving across 10 and going up 2. This is the first point. And the second point, B, is at 6. So again, move 6 across the x-axis and up 8. Okay, and then I want you to connect the points. So here's our line segment. We need to come up with, we need to figure out where the midpoint is, right? Well, when I plot my first point A, how do you read a coordinate? X and Y, good. So I technically started at 0, and I moved across until I got to 10, right, for the X value. Okay, and then for the second coordinate, again, we read a coordinate X, Y. Well, I need to know halfway between the X values, right? So if you look here, where does my X value start?
10.
10, and then it ends at 6, technically, right? I need to know halfway between the X values and halfway between the Y values, right? Halfway between X and halfway between Y will give me the new coordinate of where it needs to be plotted. So let's call this 1, since this was the first coordinate we plotted, and let's call the other one 2, x2 and y2. I'm just differentiating between the two coordinates since they're both x and y. How do you find half of the two x coordinates? What do I have to do to find half of the two x coordinates, James? Well, I just want to know halfway between my two x values. How do you find half of something? The mean, the average. So we need to add them up. Good. 10 plus 6. And then what? To find halfway. Divided by 2.
That
What's
8.
10 plus 6?
8.
Is 16.
8.
Divided by 2 equals 8. So I know that the first part of this midpoint, I'm going to start at 0, go all the way to 8. It's going to be somewhere at 8 and something. Okay, we're going to figure out what the second coordinate is. So 8 and something. Well, we need to figure out that y value. So let's look. I started at 2, and I go all the way up to 8. I need to know halfway between these two values.
5.
So let's add 8. 2 plus 8
equals 10.
Divided by 2 equals 10 divided by 2 equals 5. Let's see if this makes sense. 5 is halfway between the y values, and we said that 8 was halfway between the x values. The x values went from 6 to 10. Is 8 halfway? So let's look here. This is the point. It's at 8 and 5. This is our midpoint. Halfway between the x values and halfway between the y values. Does this look like, here's our original line segment, does this look like it's halfway between both points? Yeah, good. Okay, so we just came up with a formula for calculating the midpoint. What did we do to calculate the midpoint? How did you get the first part of the coordinate? Right, because we need to know our x and our y value. How do we get the first part of the coordinate? x1 plus x2, good, divided by 2. Okay, remember we're taking the two x values and then we're cutting them in half. We're dividing it by 2. That will give us the first part of the coordinate. And how do you get the second part of the coordinate?
y1 plus y2.
Yeah. y1 plus y2. And then again, divide by 2 because it's halfway.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.